Greetings, good people. Welcome back to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders, what? Are lifetime learners. And today's guest, we're going to talk about what it takes, what it feels like to be this close to a dream and still get cut. Jac, I'm going to let you meet my guy, Jac. He spent years grinding through professional baseball as an umpire, rising all the way to AAA, one step from major leagues. Then the phone rang and it was over. Early 30s, negative net worth, identity shaken, confidence bruised. Instead of folding, Jac rebuilt. He took the discipline, emotional control, and decisiveness that baseball demanded and applied it to one of the most unforgiving industries out there, finance. Yeah. Today, he's the founder of a multi-million dollar advisory firm and the author of Too Smart to Be an Umpire, a raw, honest story that's about loss, reinvention, and playing the long game. Okay. This conversation is about what happens after the dream dies and how you decide who you're going to be next. Without further ado, Jac, welcome.
Thank you, Tonya. It's great to be with you today. I'm excited to talk with you.
I am thrilled to have the opportunity to talk to you. Not too many people talk to umpires. They just when they're done, they're done, and most of the time, happy they're done. But the opportunity to get to talk to you about your experiences, what happened, and then what came next is an honor. So I'd love for you to tell the people where you're at and how you're doing right now.
Well, I'm in a great spot in life. I wrote the book Too Smart to Be an Umpire after going through my 30-year career in finance because I think the book is worth a good read because the reader can gain a lot of insight of everything I went through, from the minor leagues, if you're a baseball fan, all the way to the reinvention process, how to start a business with no money, how to grow the business, and then ultimately get out of the business and have fulfillment and family as well. So in a very short book, there's a lot of life lessons in there. And I take a lot from things that I learned as a baseball umpire and just being in baseball in general and applied those things to business. And I think the baseball experience, rather than being a negative, spending 8 years in the minor leagues and then, being at the cusp of the major leagues and getting released, you learn things when you see successful people right in front of you. What were they doing? And how can I then apply that to business and not feel sorry for myself for the rest of my life? Let's spin this and turn this lemon into lemonade, so to speak.
I love that. I think sports is a great teacher of life lessons and resilience and self-esteem, so many different things that people take away from sports. I think they think it's all about the wins and losses, and that is couldn't be further from the truth. And I want to ask you, because AAA is the door before the door, right before the door.
Yes.
When you got released, what hurt you more, the career loss or the identity loss? Because you have been doing it for so long.
Both. Both. You when you get released from the minor leagues, you feel like a big loser. You feel awful. 30 years later, you can say, wow, making it to AAA is pretty cool. But at the time, you feel awful. Your whole identity is somebody that's in professional baseball, especially for an umpire. The knee-jerk reaction is, well, you must not have been that good. Those guys on TV aren't that great, so you may not have been that good. But you feel horrible. And you also, anybody that becomes a sports official has to love the game. So it's kind of like a religious experience. I would equate my release
Wow, that
to
was
like
deep.
the death of a close person, if you will, like not a child. God, I haven't had that. I hope I never see that. But it's the equivalent of the death of a very close person to you. It's like that. Yes.
I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah.
Of all the feeling, you're right. It's like the death of, because you've been doing it for so long. It's a part of who you are.
It's a
Literally,
part
it's
of
a
who
part
you
of who
are.
you
Yes.
are. How
Yes.
you move. It's what you do every day. It's the culture that you have entrenched yourself in.
Right.
for so
And
long.
there's no other baseball too. There's either
Right.
you can't go to Italy or something like that and go officiate somewhere else. So that's it. Career is over, and you have to
Yeah.
find something else to do.
So nobody talks about, I've never heard this, negative net worth after chasing a dream. How bad was it really?
Well, my wife was pregnant with our first child, my last year in AAA, and the baby Caitlin was born after I was released. The way we attained a negative net worth was very simply buying a condominium and having it go down in value substantially due to a real estate crash during the early 1990s. And you have a mortgage that's far greater than the value of the home. We soon after had a second child. So we had a boy and a girl living in the same bedroom, and we had a negative net worth and ready go. And that's what we had to deal with to start with.
What is, were you embarrassed to tell people that you were starting from scratch, that you were starting over? Like, what did that feel like
No,
to face people that had been on this journey with you?
no. In my wife is my witness. I I believe everything in life starts with attitude. And my attitude was going to be, if I could make it to AAA in baseball, if I could make it to AAA in almost any other business, I'll be doing very well for myself. And I really felt I had a skill set that I learned from baseball. And I really felt like if I was going to start over again and take a few years to re-educate myself and lay a solid foundation, it would lead to something beneficial. I did not have any idea it would lead to the level of business success I ended up having. But I realized that in order to be successful, there's no shortcuts. You have to lay a solid foundation for whatever it is that you want to go into, and then use that education and take advantage of it. Ask questions, find mentors, be almost a pest trying to get ahead. And I genuinely believed if I did that, things would work out, and they did.
It's almost a conversation that could be had with former athletes that are struggling with post athletic life, right? If you can be in that top 1% or 2% that got to whatever level it is, even college sports, college pros, you've done something that a very small amount of people on this planet can do. Understand that you can move past this, starting
Yeah.
from scratch and elevating yourself. You've done that in sports. And I'm just surprised that we don't have that conversation more, you know?
I'm surprised how people in sports don't take the lessons from sports and use them in other things. I see these stories about athletes going broke, not having a successful post career in sports, and there's other people, Jack Kemp, Bill Bradley, Magic Johnson, that have done very well in politics and in business by taking what they learned and using it to their advantage. And so for me, what I did is to deal with my hurt, because there is this side of you that's going through this emotional pain. And what I did is I decided to engross myself in education. I was fortunate. I had an accounting degree before I went into baseball. I was hired by Ernst & Young. Why they hired somebody, an 8-year minor league umpire, I don't know, but they did. And then I went to school at night, weekends, for 4 solid years. And in those 4 years, I picked up my CPA, CFP, Masters in Taxation, Securities and Insurance license. I did not watch a baseball game. I did not allow myself to do that because I had that hurt.
Yeah.
But while I was doing all these things, I built up a very good skill set that I could take advantage of.
What do you think the biggest lie we tell young athletes about if you work hard enough is?
Because you need to work smart enough. That's the lie. It's not about working hard. It's about working smart. And business owners don't understand that because they work too hard in their business rather than on their business. People practice. I mentioned this in Too Smart to Be an Umpire. How to study when you're raising your children. Study hard, but people have to learn how to study smart. And if you talk to people that have been successful in sports, Nick Saban always talks about process. And I learned as an umpire, I had a process for how I called balls and strikes. When I went into business, I developed processes for how to do an initial client meeting, how to onboard clients, how to do communication with clients. I was the number one advisor in my firm for over a decade. Not once did I ever sit down and go, I want to be the number one advisor in my firm. I went through every process that needed to be put into effect so that that win in business took place, the same way having a process that works for a golfer or a baseball player going up to bat, a home plate umpire calling balls and strikes. Developing processes are what need to be done. And that is the minutia of what needs to be taught, in my view. Not just work hard, work smart. And if you don't know what working smart is, seek mentorship from people that are doing what you aspire to do in this life. Find out if that's what you even want to do, and ask probing questions, and then people will learn from that, in my view.
I love that. You didn't inherit clients or capital. What did you actually sell in those early years? Was it your expertise? Was it trust? What were you selling?
To be perfectly frank with you, the first clients I had were umpires. They knew there's a CPA out there that knows something about our business and isn't going to ask us stupid questions. And so the brand at the beginning was me. And so what I tried to do is create, and I consider myself a nerd, not even though I was a top salesman, I don't consider myself a salesperson. I decided I was going to compete on service and provide overwhelming levels of service for my clients, so they would talk about me the way you may talk about your favorite restaurant, create raving fans. An example that I mentioned in Too Smart to Be an Umpire is when a client of mine gave me their tax information on a Friday night. On Saturday, I worked on it all day. And on Sunday, I hand delivered it to this person with a dozen hot bagels and the Sunday New York Times. So when he opened his door on Sunday morning, there were the tax returns. And that kind of wow service attracts people, especially in an era where a human being doesn't answer the telephone, emails aren't returned on time. I think it's very easy to compete in business if you make service a top priority. And once you have enough business and you have employees, you make sure that culture is done throughout your business, and you'll have more business than you know what to do with if you have that attitude. That stuff is not taught in school. And I think almost anybody listening to this podcast can identify what poor service they receive and how much they enjoy good service too, by the way.
Listen, I have had teachers that I can't remember their names, but my first employer that I remember, his name was Cliff Cooper, and he was a manager for the Kinney Corporation. And the Kinney Corporation owned Foot Locker, Champs, all the stores, all the big stores, right? All the athletic stores. And he talked about how the Kinney Corporation was able to be so successful, and they were owned by Woolworths and that whole chain. So I'm from back then, right? And part of it was teaching us, especially young employees, about building raving fans and what accurate, ideal customer service looked like. And you were always building raving fans, not just fans, raving fans.
It's got. I've always said that to the people in our office. If people are not, when it comes to Thanksgiving dinner, and you're sitting around at the table, and Uncle Steve says that he just got laid off from his job, if one of our clients is at that table and doesn't say, "You got to call Jack or Jason or Anthony," then you lost out. It's got to be late. It should be a knee-jerk reaction because they've received such great service from you. That's what we need to deliver to our clients in order for all of us to grow around here. That was what I tried to instill.
And for those that don't understand how this works, that is actually PR. That is the essence of public relations. It is not a campaign you see on TV. That's marketing. That's you telling people how amazing you are. Public relations is getting other people to tell other people how amazing you are without even being prompted. So kudos to you for understanding that and making it a huge part of the work that you are doing. I think that is so important.
Yeah.
Your reputation is everything, and great customer service allows for people to feel like they are as important as the checks they're writing to people, whether it's in finance or your grocery store. People don't always remember what you sold them, but they do remember how you made them feel.
100%. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. And that ability to relate to people. I think my experience as an umpire being so underpaid for so long, my last year in AAA, there were 8 teams in our league. Two of the teams, Buffalo and Louisville, drew over 1 million fans. And my W-2 for that year was under $10,000 for umpiring over 150 baseball games.
Mm.
I can relate to the people having dinner with Kraft macaroni and cheese. And I think my ability to empathize with people, treat everybody with tremendous amount of respect, and this goes for anybody in business, goes a real long way to humble yourself and treat people with dignity and respect, and you can go a long way.
Was there a moment, and be honest, where you almost quit?
Quit in finance or baseball?
Finance.
In finance, I would say my ultimate low was actually in the very first year. In the very first year, and this is where I thought I was questioning God. I took 5 weeks off, leaving Ernst & Young, going to another job, and decided to devote everything I had into studying for the CPA exam, because I'd been out of college 8 years. I was an umpire for 8 years, and here I am trying to pass all 4 parts of the CPA exam. I studied from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. for 6 weeks, and also preparation prior to that. And on the day of the exam, I went to start my car, and I left the lights on the night before. There was no Uber, there was no Lyft. I started knocking on doors and had a few doors slammed in my face. But when those lights, when that battery was dead, I said, I'm the biggest loser on the face of the earth. And I ended up getting a ride from a Sherry DeCorso, a college basketball player at St. Peter's. And I told her, if I pass this exam, you're going to get your taxes done for free as long as I'm a CPA. And I've lived up to that promise. But at that moment, there's nothing goes in a straight line. I'm not here to say that this is, I think once you're in business and established and you start to get things, it gets easier. But the grind in the beginning is very difficult, and you'll have so many obstacles along the way. That's why I said attitude is everything. If you don't believe in yourself, there's a lot of people in this world, especially in the day in this era, that are going to try and knock you down. So you really have to have this core belief in yourself. So at the beginning, when things were tough, yeah, there was a lot of doubts. But on the other side of that, about 5 years in, I remember saying to my wife, I said, I think I have this thing down here. I said, these rich people really seem to like me. And I think this process we have really works. And then repeat it. And I'm on to something here. And then I was able to teach people in our office, and they started to understand it. I started teaching other advisors. So I was able to, once I figured it out, on the other side of it, I'm like, I think we can have a pretty cool life for ourselves if this works out the way I think it is. So,
love that for you. Yeah. You emphasize tax smart, long-term planning over quick wins. Why is that countercultural in finance?
Yeah, you get on TV and you hear people say, what is the stock market going to do today, tomorrow, next week? The stock market and investing is very much for the long term. I've had clients that I've been out socially, and we look on TV and see the Dow Jones Industrial down by 700 points. And they look at me and they go, that doesn't bother you at all, does it? I go, no, I didn't make the investment for today. I made it for about 10 years out. In the investment world, the lunacy of watching the stock market every day is just that. If you think about it, in my opinion, as far as the stock market is concerned and investing is concerned, if you think about it logically or in theory, the stock market should go up every day of the week. How can I possibly say that? Well, take any company, take Microsoft. People at Microsoft today are going out to work. They're making some money. They're paying down debt. And when today ends, Microsoft should be worth more than it was yesterday. Same with you, Tonya. Tonya, you came to work today. If Tonya was a stock, you came to work, made some money, paid down your debt. Your net worth is higher than it was yesterday. So why does it go up and down? Well, maybe Tonya booked a great guest or a bad guest, or something good happened or bad happened. And you have this noise in the short run. If you look at the stock market, it's like watching a person go up and down a pogo stick up a mountain. You could focus on the daily movements, but the stock market has always gone up over the long term. But in the short term, there's a lot of volatility, and there could be wars, there could be terrorist attacks. Anybody that says they know what's going to take place is wrong. People have to, and I think that's the same way with an individual. You have to be looking out 3, 5, and 10 years. What is the move I can make today that will benefit me later on? Oftentimes when I'm meeting with a client that's in their 40s, I said, I'm looking at the 65-year-old version of yourself over there, and I'm trying to coach you up so that that person out there has a really good life for themselves. And so you got to live for today. I get it. But you have to plan for tomorrow as well. And you also have to plan for worst case scenarios and things along those lines. You have a positive life and still plan for worst case scenarios. But people have to think big picture, in my view.
What's the difference between being rich and being financially durable?
Rich is something that comes from within. Success comes from within. I think in a capitalistic society, Michael Jordan will make more than an emergency room nurse because Michael Jordan contributes more to the system. So I don't measure success necessarily by money. In my opinion, financial independence is achieved when somebody can get more money out of their investments from interest and dividends than what their living expenses are. That's how, when I'm dealing with clients, I try to quantify numbers that we need to get. So in other words, if somebody has $100,000 a year of living expenses, they need to get to a lump sum to produce that in interest and dividends, in my view. And the reason why that's so critical is because of the down markets that we often have. If you're collecting a dividend on a stock, even though the stock goes down, the dividends are still there. So there's a way to measure financial independence, but success can be a teacher having a great career. A teacher's not going to earn the money that a financial advisor is going to make. A bad financial advisor will make more money than a good teacher. So that may not be fair in our society, but that's the world we live in. I learned that from being in baseball because I was very much on the wrong side of capitalism when I was an umpire. But success can mean many things, in my view. I believe success is when your adult children want to spend time with you.
I like that. And I agree. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah.
What do market crashes and blown calls have in common?
A lot. When in baseball or in anything, if I'm an umpire, I'm looking to get respect from players and managers. This is prior to everything being on instant replay, where your reputation meant a lot. I could make 20 good calls in a row. If I made a bad call, it would take me another 20 to 50 to make up for the respect that I just lost there. So that's part of the respect business. As far as markets going down, as I've grown in my career, I've always viewed them as opportunities, that a sale is taking place. I can buy some companies or ETFs or mutual funds that I might have missed out on last time. Right now, if the stock market went down 20 or 30%, I would consider converting part of my IRA to a Roth IRA, paying taxes on it when it's a lower value, buying companies that are on the cheap. There's a sale taking place. And 2008 was one of the greatest sales we had of all time, because by buying at that low, I am betting on America. I am betting on 300 million people trying to get ahead in their lives. And I remember in 2008 when the market went down so poorly, and I was on a conference call with a bunch of advisors and everybody was in panic. I said, hey guys, I remember being a release minor league umpire and dusting my pants off and getting up and saying, I'm getting back to work here. And so we have to have, I'm not trying to be political here, but we have to have a government system that creates the opportunities for people to get ahead. And as long as we have good fiscal policy and monetary policy, those things are in place to help people get ahead. And you're always going to have arguments on what's the best way to do that. I understand that. But right now, if the stock market were to go down 20 or 30%, nobody likes it, but I'd view it as an opportunity.
I hear you. But that That's kind of how life works, right? When something bad happens, you know that there's an opportunity for something good to happen. You just have to clean yourself off and pick yourself up and find it, correct?
And that's when God tests you. As far as I'm concerned, that's when you're tested. I remember after when we were poor, coming home from my job in New York and seeing my wife on the side of the bed crying her eyes out. And I asked her, what's the matter? And she finally said she was pregnant. And I said, that's great. She goes, that's great. We can't even afford us, Mr. Financial Advisor. And I said, God's bringing that child into the world. You either believe that or you don't. And that, things like that test you. So you're going to be tested. I'm not here to say, and what I'm saying, I'm not being Pollyanna. Things are tough, but I think the challenge is trying to figure out how to work smart and figure it out and keep driving. And I think you'll ultimately achieve success. It might come fast, it might come slow, but you'll ultimately get there.
Who is this book for? Is your book for the athlete, the professional, or the person quietly panicking at a roadblock trying to pick themselves up?
The thing that made me, when I wrote the book, I was wondering, is this a baseball book or is this a business book? And I started reading all the reviews on Amazon that people said, if you really enjoy baseball, this book is for you. And if you really enjoy business, this book is for you. I think people, if they get nothing out of it, they will get a lot out of Too Smart to Be an Umpire. They'll see the resilience that takes place from being an umpire, having to make calls under tremendous pressure, how to deal with people on their worst behavior, and how to deal with the curveballs that life throws at you, and ultimately achieve success, both financially, also physically, and through having your kids love you. So how does all that work? That is in Too Smart to Be an Umpire. It's all in that book.
What actually ended your umpiring career?
The career ended, which is where the title comes from, by the way. When you're a baseball umpire, it's a very subjective analysis of who gets to the big leagues and who doesn't. And I understand that's part of what I signed in for. But what happened with me is, in my last year in baseball, I was in my 8th year, and a supervisor from the American League, Dick Butler, came to a game at the old Rosenblatt Stadium in Omaha, Nebraska, and he surprised us coming in after the game. I was the home plate umpire. When the game ended, he took us out to dinner, and not a lot of words were being exchanged. And I finally said, Mr. Butler, I've been in the minor leagues 8 years, kind of would like to know where I stand with the American League. And he said, well, Jack, he goes, I think you called a really good game. He goes, I watched the game. I only disagreed with one pitch out there. He goes, if you want me to be completely honest with you, I think you're too smart to be an umpire. And that's where the title of the book comes from, because I was thinking, too smart, is that a defect? I don't consider myself, I consider myself that. This came from Major League Baseball. And so with the National League, Ed Vargo, who's a supervisor for the National League, said, look, I like a couple guys better than you. And if you like umpiring so much, you can go umpire college games. It's very nasty. And that lit a fire under me too, because I felt his derogatory comments really lit a fire under me. Like, I'll show you who's going to be a loser in this life. But that's where the title comes from, and that's what happened.
Who's going to be a loser? I love that. Okay, quick fire round before I get you out of here. One
Sure.
skill from umping that everyone should use in business.
Conflict resolution, how to deal with people on their worst behavior and not to take things so personally.
Very good.
Go ahead. All right.
Go ahead.
I'll give you a quick example of this. I'll try to. Mike McFarland was the #1 pick of the Kansas City Royals and went right to AA. He had a double in his first at bat. In the next play, there was a fly ball hit to the center fielder. He tagged up and went to third. The second baseman looked at me and said, hey, Jack, did you see that? And I go, yeah, I saw it. I saw him leaving the base too soon. The base was appealed. The manager of the Royals came out and, to protect his player, said, if I can say, your horse bleep, Jack. And I went, that really hurts. And he was ejected from the game. Now, most people, if I said that to almost anybody, would be very offended. But I realized this is his #1 pick. He's trying to show that guy that he loves him. Okay. Yeah. And rather than being insulted, crying back to him, I realized what happened. And then the manager and I had a beer that night. Okay. So how to handle conflict is a big thing.
I appreciate that. In business, though, I don't know. I don't think people are as honest, and which allows for more misinterpretation to take place. You know,
If you're in business with a difficult client and you could spin things around so that client now gets you and you get that client, you will own that client forever. Whereas other people that can't, that's the difference in my business between true success versus somebody that's mediocre. Handling not the litigious client, but somebody that might be difficult and maybe out of the box, like an engineer is usually
yeah,
difficult for somebody in finance.
yeah.
But but learning how to handle people is probably the biggest one.
One money myth that keeps people broke.
One money myth that keeps people broke. Buying lottery tickets would be at the top of the list. And if I could give advice to anybody, the two biggest piece of advice would be max out your 401k plan. Your tax bill is probably the biggest bill you have in your life. Most people on this podcast probably know if they got a refund or they owed money. I'll bet you 99% of them don't know what they owed, what their tax bill was to the Internal Revenue Service. So have a 401k plan, and then also for employees, have a side hustle, a side business where you try to make as much money as possible. That's what I would do.
Awesome. One non-negotiable habit for long-term success.
Exercise. Move more, eat less. It has nothing to do with money. Move more, eat less. Set a good foundation for your health.
So before I let you go, what is your life like now? What is your life like, family wise, and how has it changed since your umping career?
Yeah, I sold the business to two of our employees effective December 31st, 2025, and I'm doing what I advised all retirees to do. In your first year, just try to feel things out. I have three children, and I'm going to be a grandfather of three within 1 year. My oldest daughter, Caitlin, is the Department of Energy's attaché at the U.S. Embassy in Beijing, China. She's going to have a baby in March in Singapore. We're going to go out there. My middle child, Christopher, is a captain for Alaska Airlines. He became a captain at 32. And my youngest, Matt, is a salesman for Ace Endico, a fine foods distributor. So the three kids will all have their own children within 1 year. We're going from 0 grandchildren to 3. So I'm hoping that fills up our time. We have one granddaughter, and then two boys are on the way coming from different kids. So between that, my lousy golf game, and and trying to help other people, that's where I'm at right now. But they're all good things. It's nice to have some time on my hands, and I'll figure it out.
I love that. Starting from scratch. Listen, y'all, you can do it. Life happens, and we have to keep lifing and working hard to rebuild things that have fallen and just sometimes start fresh. It does not have to be a pity party when things go bad. And I completely agree. When things go bad, that is your opportunity to find the good in it. So let's keep pushing, keep thriving, pick your head up after you're done being mad and crying and raging about whatever went wrong, and find the right in all of this. Tell the people where they can get your book and how they can, continue to follow you and support you in the work that you're doing.
Too smart to be an umpire is available online, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. My business, Oujo Wealth Strategies, which I'm no longer involved in. I'll probably be a contributor on their website, but they're the two places that people can find me, and maybe on podcasts all over the place as well. But that's pretty much it right now. Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. You guys run out and get that book, learn some things, get your money right, and know that you have places to go to find the answers you need to make things all better. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Tonya.
Hey, thanks for showing up to the podcast where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. When you get a sec, take a moment, leave a comment. What you think about today's episode, and share it with someone that you know could use the gems that were dropped today. Follow and subscribe. You don't want to miss who's coming up next. You never know who could show up here and what they could say. For your professional needs, marketing, PR, communications, and leadership, make sure you follow us on all social media platforms at Sand and Shores, or hit us up at sandandshores.com. Again, thanks so much for showing up. We appreciate you, and we'll see you soon.